Hey guys, what's up? So, the next poem I'm going to be reading is poem 795, and this is called A Different Kind of Fate. This was originally supposed to be a script, but I decided to simplify it into a short story. Maybe later on I'll pursue the original idea. This is dedicated to a good friend of mine that was going through a bad breakup, and it took a while for him to really get through the breakup. In ways, I think he's still trying to move on. No, there's nothing wrong with that. As some would say, we should all move on at our own pace. But it's also important to understand that we have one life to live. And well, isn't it better to live it, being grateful for the beautiful things than suffering, thinking back to what could have happened if I did this or that? This short story is basically about a best friend that takes his friend with a broken heart to a fortune teller, and she gives him three options. A different kind of fate. So I took my very good friend to Madame Regina, the fortune teller in the old plaza. It's only 2 blocks away from where I live. I told him a tiny white lie. You see, I made it clear this was for me, because I knew if I told him this was a gift for him, he wouldn't have come along. He has a very strong personality, and at times he could be a little stubborn, but he's still human. Someone did get underneath his skin. Someone he fell in love with. Someone that broke his heart. Someone who still has hope that will come back home. We walked into the little shop. I went first and handed Madame Regina the photograph, the ones I took from his house, and told her thank you for this. She smiled and told me to send him in. I came from the back and told my friend she wanted to see him. He gave a confused look, and I pushed him toward the direction as he passed the hanging beads to her room. Vanilla cinnamon incense with a dozen lit candles in the room. There she sat with her eyes shut near a table and a crystal ball in the middle. He got closer and realized on the table were pictures in 3 groups. They were his photographs. He was so confused. She spoke. Please, take a seat. He told her he didn't believe any of this. Her green eyes opened as the shine from the crystal ball glowed. This only intrigued him, so he took a seat as she grabbed his hand. You want to remain strong because that's what people see when they look at you. But you can't move on because your heart is still broken. I'm going to give you another chance. As she said this, rose petals began to slowly fall down in the same room. He couldn't believe this. How was this happening? On the table, there are 3 fates, 3 destinies, 3 dimensions. Whatever you choose, remember, in that world, things will be much different than what's here. She explained each option to him, and even though this would technically not be something he would believe in, she convinced him her power, and he chose the third fate, which was having another chance with his ex lover, making things work. She grabbed his hand, the petals stopped falling. They both put their hands on the crystal ball as the room began to spin round, 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 and faster. All of a sudden, he was sitting in his apartment right next to his lover, his ex lover. He turned to look at him and gave him a hug with a long, passionate kiss. He knew this time, this chance, this turn was going to be different, because this time he was going to do everything different than before. As days went by, he realized that yes, he got his lover back. It was something he's been wanting for so long, but other things were different. His very good friend, well, he had no idea who he was. Actually, none of his friends knew who he was. His job was something completely different, and he hated it. And his parents, well, they didn't exist anymore. And also, that him and his ex-lover were completely opposite. They didn't want the same things. He remembered what Madame Regina said, that things would be completely different in this dimension. He continued to go along with it, but realized that once he had everything that he ever wanted, it wasn't worth it anymore, because it didn't feel real. One day, when they were having dinner at the restaurant, the same restaurant they always had before, he turned to look at him and said, "This isn't what I want anymore." And all of a sudden, everything went blurry. There was a white light, and the glow dimmed, and he found himself sitting back on that chair, looking back at the fortune teller. He smiled and said thank you as he got up from his chair and walked out of the room, seeing his friend giving him a hug. Sometimes it takes another fate to teach us that maybe our lives are exactly how they should be, and to open our eyes and see how beautiful it really can be.